When your volunteers are watching these court hearings, how do you know, like, what to look for, and how do you report if you see something egregious happening?
We know what to look for because we know what injustice looks like. Going into the courtrooms and paying attention to the judges and the prosecutors is very super important. And it's really easy to point out injustice. It's not hard at all. By watching the courts, we're able to see when folks' due process is being infringed upon. We're able to see things like Brady evidence being left out, Brady violations, speedy trials.
But you say those things, and I don't even know what those things are. You know, so there has to be some way that your volunteers. If somebody told me to watch a court hearing, I mean, I could see things that I disagreed with that I might feel like are is an injustice to whoever's being prosecuted. But I don't know that I have the legal training or the legalese to articulate that to people within the system.
It's a very intense training that we put volunteers through.
Right.
We do have partnerships with the ACLU DC,
wow.
ACLUs, and we are able to bring them in to help train to see what we're looking for.
That's really awesome. Yodit, I want to ask you because this is not unique to D.C. There are organizations like this all across the country, which I hope is making an impact on the criminal justice system. But what impact do groups like this have on these court proceedings when you see something that might be egregious? I mean, can you hold judges? Can we as citizens hold judges accountable and hold prosecutors and DAs accountable for such things?
We should, and that is what's happening right now. I will say that you cannot find a solution to a problem that you don't know exists or understand. And so this is what Court Watchers is doing. Transparency by way of cameras. And of course, again, Court Watchers hold those players in the criminal legal system, judges, lawyers, jurors, police officers accountable. And with accountability builds trust. Now, I can tell you, you mentioned me being a former prosecutor and criminal defense attorney. I was also a judge. And I can tell you that the most important player in the criminal legal system isn't the person wearing the black robe or the police uniform. It is prosecutors. They have an enormous amount of discretion when it comes to the decision-making process at every stage, from an arrest to sentencing. They say who gets charged, what those charges are, or if someone gets charged at all. They also control the coercive process of plea bargaining in order to avoid going to trial. What that means is that they are making deals with defendants in exchange for guilty pleas when the defendants may not even be guilty or said guilt be proven beyond a reasonable doubt in court. So prosecutors are the driving force behind policies and practices of the system, and they absolutely can change the culture, the prosecutorial culture in this country. They can reduce incarceration. They can create alternatives that are more effective and less costly than jails and prisons. They are absolutely the drivers of mass incarceration. So I would say that what Court Watchers is doing and what Court TV does by having cameras in the courtroom is to absolutely watch the prosecutors doing work, because they are the only players in this system that are literally not being regulated at all.
Which is a very scary thought. And, I often wonder why the Republican Party isn't more interested in addressing these issues, because housing America's prisoners, very expensive. More than $88 billion in local, state, and federal taxpayer money is spent housing these prisoners. Tell me, what are some of the most egregious things that you've seen or that your group has seen when watching what happens in these courtrooms?
We have seen prosecutors basically laughing at individuals before they put them away or before they, go to court. We have seen prosecutors misrepresent information. We have actually heard a prosecutor say that they were the no bond Nancy in the courts, saying that, they believe in holding people in prison or in cages. So we've heard it and seen a lot.
Yeah.
And to have regular, everyday citizens to go in and to actually see what's going on, and it looks nothing like Law and Order.
Right. And the scary thing about this, Yodit, is that has to be very intimidating to someone who is not, is not a lawyer, is not litigious, and is in this courtroom with their life on the line, in cuffs, being treated, subhuman, and have all these people kind of talking around you or talking at you. I just wonder, what power does the individual have? D.C. is fortunate enough to have a pretty good public defender program, but across this country, that's not true. Public defenders are doing good work. They're overloaded. It's hard to, represent everyone fairly, I imagine. What can individuals do?
Local elections, and I'm sure you have stressed this point on your show thousands of times, local elections are so incredibly important. People don't even understand who is running for DA. And the DA is so important in setting the tone for his office for the prosecutors that work underneath that DA. And so with court watchers, that's definitely one way of holding these players accountable. But local elections is so incredibly important. And Tiffany, we've got to stay proactive. I'm so glad for the work that Kiana is doing because we can't wait for the next police-involved shooting or the next not guilty verdict or read another headline of someone's exoneration who spent decades in prison for a crime they didn't commit. We shouldn't have to wait for those things to happen. So what we need to do is really get involved and understand who's running for these unopposed positions, because there are DAs who have those positions for so long because they run unopposed or people don't know what their platform is. And so by sitting in court and understanding, okay, listen, we repeatedly see these prosecutors asking for bail amounts for first-time offenders, nonviolent offenders that are just egregious. Who is the commander-in-chief of that office? What are they doing? And so local elections are incredibly important.